everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, Alan. Yeah, welcome to this month's edition of NORA Oil Tech Talk. And our special guest this evening is Rosemarie Bartchak of Boyertown Furnace.
Been looking forward to that. There she is.
It is Rosemarie. So we're happy to have you, Rosemarie. And we just wanted to touch on what's going on, what's new with Boyertown, with the furnace line, the boiler line, the whole thing. So what's new with you guys?
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. So, a little bit about Boyertown. Boyertown Furnace came about basically in 1981. I started working for Columbia Boiler Company as their accounts payable person, and they were purchasing the Hallmark furnace for many years to market up in the territories that they had that were selling some boilers. When they purchased that line of furnaces, I just kind of took the lead, took the phone calls and so on and so forth, and sort of the rest is history with the Hallmark furnace. That was my first baby.
So you went from the office and into the fire.
Yes. My previous life, I was Literally. A music major, and I played in a band, and I fronted the band. So once I got the chance to start talking to the customers on the phone, I just took hold of that. And when you're a musician and you're playing in the band, you want to make people happy. And I just love taking the phone calls and learning and so on and so forth. From being a music major, which I wanted to play in the New York Philharmonic, so I had pretty big goals, to saying, okay, well, I sell boilers and furnaces and love it as much as I do. Just an example of what you can do if you have a passion. The expansion of Boyertown Furnace then led to the light commercial line of furnaces. We purchased the line of Cox Wonder Air. Still have that line of furnaces. In fact, we're the only manufacturer left in those larger BTU ranges. So then after that, we came online with the boilers in 2002.
I wasn't aware that that's how they got into the Hallmark, and it's only that old. I thought you were going to say the 30s or 40s or 20s. I didn't realize it was 1981. That's not that long ago.
Well, Hallmark itself, Mr. Wilhelm, Atlantic Heating and Cooling down in Baltimore, Maryland. Mr. Wilhelm started, that was his name, that line of furnaces in 1936.
And we just missed the quick question from Alan Warnham. He said he put a lot of furnaces, Cox furnaces in Fort Devens, Massachusetts in the late 80s.
So
I have another comment, not a question, from Brenda Sinclair Burnson. And she says, Rosemarie is the best! Exclamation point, which I think everybody in this industry can agree with that.
Hands down.
We were talking before about with helping people. I believe that's what's really behind your success, is the building relationships and just being there and the support and all that goes along with it.
It's the people. I mean, not only have I been so fortunate to have really good products, but it is the people in this industry who work with you and answer back. People like you and Alan and Don and Bob Boltz and Dan Allahan, Judy Garber. You can go on and on, George McQueenie. Yeah. These guys, I mean, it's Mr. Pavlik, Mr. Pirelli, all of these guys. I mean, I hope that I've never acted like just, this is not maybe going to come out right, but I hope that I've never acted like helpless, like because I'm a woman. When I learned in the band is when we go to set up, you'll carry the speakers in, you carry everything in, you tear down, you take everything out. I am very big on being very independent and carrying my own weight, so to speak, on everything. And I want to learn. And if you don't act like you know it all and you ask these guys questions, they're more than helpful to get you answers. And that's truly appreciated.
Amen. And over the years, I can personally say, Rosemarie, I've seen you reciprocate that, taking, the knowledge. You don't just bring the passion, you bring the knowledge. And that's why I, in kind of tongue in cheek when I say Empress of Air, but as I first started to get to know you, it was because I was learning about this lady who, was with this company that she'll come and show you how to do ductwork, right, darn it. and you did. And you did. So.
Well, that is one of the biggest problems, obviously, with warm air. And I would like to think it's gotten better, but honestly, it's probably not. And then that is mostly because when we first got started, there were a lot of warm air furnaces out there. Some of them were way less expensive, and they were building homes with oil heat in the 70s and 80s. So there was what I would consider a builder's grade furnaces available. And you knew in 7, 8, 10 years, you were going to have an opportunity, whether it's us or whether it was Thermopride or something like that, to pick up on that and become a lifetime furnace in that house. Well, I mean, most of those houses, those 40s, 50s, 60s houses still have that 40s, 50s, 60s ductwork, but we are not putting in 40s, 50s, 60s furnaces. And we certainly aren't putting in the air conditioning that was back in the day. There's size problems and issues now with the size of coils. Furnaces have to be smaller. They have to be much more efficient. So we're still seeing issues with airflow and ductwork being the biggest issues that are out there. Combustion air, another big problem as houses have tightened up. The burner manufacturers have done a great job of trying to help us out with that. But nonetheless, the point needs to be made. And I looked at a PowerPoint from the great Jim Todd, and when he sort of tells you how many cubic feet of combustion air you need in a basement, just because you have a basement that's 30 by 60 does not mean you have enough combustion air. You can't keep all those boxes in the basement and think you have enough combustion air.
You don't have the room, right?
You don't have the room. And people I don't think they understand that. So those are a few of the issues that are still out there. Larger coils that they smack right down on top of heat exchangers, not understanding they're cutting off airflow. So yeah, it's still the same. I think Bob and I were talking the other day. I miss Ralph Adams greatly, and what a leader he was with warm air and ductwork and so on. And he was the best.
What do you see as the biggest problem? Undersizing or oversizing the furnace? Too much airflow?
I think the ductwork is still the biggest problem. And oversizing the furnace, I think they've gotten better with that. I'll be honest with you, but it is very frustrating when I get a request and says, quote me I'm taking out this furnace, quote me 125,000 BTU furnace. Well, no, what do you really need? What is it that you need? Well, this is what I have. This is what I'm taking out. So that's what we're going to put back in. Well, yeah, but that furnace was 35 years old. It is not the same today. Belt drives, gone. Obviously, direct drive. Ralph was the first one to get us to move to direct drive units back in 1985. It's the first time I ever met Ralph. And so moving that forward, and now, of course, we've got ECM, and, that's great, too. But ECM came on board like it was going to fix everybody's airflow problem. And no, it does not. It was going to get that bedroom all the way down the end of the hallway. We were finally going to be warm. No, you have to fix the ductwork to do that. And by the way, pick the rug up off the floor and move the dresser away from some of the grills and so on. And believe me, these things sound so simple, but they are still true. The coils being larger, you just need to make smaller furnaces. And so we did. We made a little lowboy that she's only 31 inches tall. But by the way, these are all girls, just so you guys know.
That's right.
They won't buy your piece of equipment if they physically cannot put that coil on top of a furnace. You're out of the game.
What do you recommend for spacing for a coil?
Oh, on an oil furnace, I think it's probably universal that it should be 6 inches above the top of the heat exchanger. I think that's universal, but I'll speak for ourselves. We're asking for 6 inches.
Yeah, that sounds all right. So I think one of the common things I see, Bob, is people who are doing it right are having a transition belt to set the coil on top of, and then a transition above that box to go into the duct system.
The way it should be done. Unfortunately, you see it a lot of times not, or it's not quite 6 inches.
I hear you.
They're laying it right on top and then melting the brain pan out of the coil very rapidly. They don't realize that obviously an oil furnace a little bit higher temperaturized than a little bit hotter there than a gas furnace would be.
Well, that and when it goes off on limit, I mean, it's going to go off on limit if you're stopping the airflow.
That's right.
That and big filters, higher MERV ratings. Now,
Yeah.
Yep.
we send ours out with a MERV 4 rating on the filter. That's what we've always done. That's what we've tested through AHRI. But today, that's virtually, I guess, nothing. They're looking at MERV 11 and so on, big 5-inch pleated filters. And so when I ask them to get a static pressure reading, because they don't have the airflow, and I ask them what to do, nobody has manometer. They don't take this stuff out there to go and do the measurements. And all the things that you guys teach, and everybody is teaching this. I can't, it sometimes gets frustrating that they think that it doesn't count, but oh yes, it does.
Yeah. I mean, even if they don't have a manometer, temperature rise is a pretty decent proxy, for that.
I have a meat thermometer here in my drawer. I mean, they could take a meat thermometer and do the difference between the supply and the return. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
It's amazing when you hear the problems though, but it's common. I mean, the duct systems are from the 50s, 60s, and they weren't sized for, this kind of airflow. And they'll pop in a 120,000 BTU furnace on a 45,000 BTU house with a tiny duct system, and the whistling, the noise complaints, the whole thing starts. And the other one you mentioned, going up on limit. I mean, it's amazing how many people think that, that warm air furnaces go off on limit. They should never go off on limit. If you do, there's an airflow problem.
Well, either that or they've never changed the air filter. I mean, it's the air filter. When I talk to them about that, they say, well, it's going off on limit. And we'll get our board, which we have a very unique board that we operate with. We partnered now. We had a gentleman in Canada, and he's sort of out of the business at the moment. He went out of the business. I think he retired. I think Bob retired. Yeah. Very, very intelligent man. I mean, was unbelievable. But now we're partnered with Hydro Level, and they are making our operating board. And, one of the unique things about our operating board for our Regal furnaces is that it will do every single motor, whether it's a PSC, whether it's continuous airflow ECM, whether it's constant torque. And even though we've evolved since 2010 with the operating board, if you have a furnace that has that board on it, today's board will retrofit all the way back. And so the guys don't have to worry about that. And one board does the entire line of furnaces. So it's really great for the wholesalers who do handle the Regal line of furnaces. They have that in stock. They can take care of the customers. But Hydro Level's been a great partner with that.
That makes me think of a question, if I may. If you can't say, I completely understand and respect it, but any future for that board you're referring to go a little further to levels that, the prior, you know what I'm talking about, where some of the diagnostics that were involved, where you could sign on and you could literally see the customer's information before you go to the job site. Any thoughts from, I mean, I know they have the capability. But I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I think we could add to that. You're adding to the cost when you do that. And I think I just was at a class, pretty sure it was, might have been Harlan, but I do think some of the burner manufacturers have some of those same benefits with some of their equipment. Maybe it was Beckett. I'm not sure who I was with. Yeah. When you get to be my age, you can't really remember. All I know is it was a burner manufacturer.
You and I both, girl. You and I both.
So some of those ideas are sort of already taken. It's hard enough getting these guys to look at reading the directions on the board for what the board can do. Like, they don't realize our board has a resettable fuse, and it is the neatest thing. Because when there's a short on the 24 volt side, they'll have a red light come on and it'll show it's a short. Now they'll say, well, so what some of them do, because they don't read the directions. Sorry, I'm just really honest.
No, that's right.
They just pull the board off, and we'll get it back, and there's nothing wrong with it. But what they don't understand is the older Honeywell boards. I didn't understand this either. But the older 9103 boards from Honeywell had a fuse. And that fuse blew. You saw that the fuse blew.
That's right.
And you went out and got a fuse and put it on and fixed it. This is a resettable fuse. It's a little black dot that instantaneously, once you find the short, it will instantaneously bring that board back up again.
Yeah.
So, and what we tell them is start pulling one
Yeah.
of the thermostat wires. And when the light goes on green, you have now found where your short is.
Yeah.
So that's as far as what we've gotten with the diagnostics. And I don't know if the money that we would put into a board to get all of those other benefits that Bob Tanner, he had great, it was exciting to watch that. But I don't know that it would have ever been used.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, we have a question from Alan Warnham. Fan and limits hid the problem because they keep turning the unit back on. right about that.
Right. They used to be able to fix that. They used to be able to just turn it off, up, down, and you fix same like belt drive blowers. Just slow that blower down if you didn't want to see that drape moving. So
it was a different world.
Yes.
Absolutely. And when you went back, just to go back a second, you're talking about pulling your own weight. I remember years ago, it was a grand opening. I think it was Webb on Long Island. You brought the trailer, you towed it from Pennsylvania, and you pulled in and parked it, got it all situated, and opened it up, and got it all went, and then went and put your high heels on.
Yeah.
And went inside. I was outside talking to somebody watching you the whole time.
Brenda, I visited Brenda out there on the island, and we've done that a couple of times with the Trio trailer. And believe me, I have white knuckles. I just tell them here I can do it, and I do it. And it really comes from it. And when I played in the band, we traveled up and down the East Coast, and we had a trailer. And if somebody was too tired to drive, you just did what you had to do. So I'm much better at going forward than I am at backing up. I can tell you that.
I didn't want to say that because I'm not very good at it myself, so I'm going to throw stones. But you pulled that thing in like a pro and set it up there, and then popped on the high heels when you were all done and went inside.
Yeah,
we had the pleasure and privilege of having her at PPA as well.
Well, I'd like to say I'm like one of the guys. But you guys they've always treated me really like a queen. You really have. I really appreciate all of that.
With duct sizing, what do you recommend when someone's replacing a furnace? Should they do a duct test, measure, see the CFM they need? Just
most people can't even tell you that. Yeah, I mean, what they should be doing is we would be asking them, what static pressure are you running? That's where we want to start, I would think. I mean, Alan teaches this, but I mean, we sort of need to know what static pressure. Most guys don't even know what's that. And then Ralph and I were talking one time. The other thing, and I'm not very good at this, but the duct zoning that they put in so that they're opening and closing. A lot of times that can cause some issues as well. And that I can tell you that causes issues. I don't know enough about it to know how we are able to bypass some of that. But that's out there a lot of the times. It causes some problems.
They used to use dump zones when I first started.
Right.
With belt drives, the zone would open, they dump it out into the garage or wherever.
Right. Yeah. Well, a lot of times, they'll do something where they'll just bring it down into the basement again. They'll bring it back down. And I'm one of those who needs to see things. So a story to tell is Dave and I had to go on a Highboy 115. It was only in 6 weeks. The gentleman was in a car accident. He was now in a wheelchair, and they had him come home. We went there, and they said the heat exchangers cracked in 6 weeks. Well, we said it can't be. Well, we're getting smells and fumes and so on. So drove 5 hours into New York State. We go downstairs, and Dave Thomas starts looking up above. And what happened, as I said, the gentleman was in a car accident. He's now in a wheelchair. They linoleumed over every return in the house. Oh. And of course, even under the door where you get that little reprieve, your basement door, now that floor was higher. No gap there either. No forgiveness at all. So here's what I learned, that when that blower came on, it was going to pull down from the path of least resistance. It pulled down from the chimney, started coming back out that Beckett burner, and I took off up the steps because I had no idea what was going on. But that's just to show you what can happen. And most of these younger people, of course, in tech schools, we talk about this stuff, but until you see it and smell it and taste it, it's hard to explain sometimes. But that's my story about combustion air and basically lack of return air. I mean, that was drastic. drastic on that. And nobody thought about that. And so it's just really important that these guys understand and check all the ductwork all around them, because they don't always do that.
Yep.
Another time they set another hallmark up in White Mountain. We drove to New Hampshire. They didn't close off the PEEP site. They didn't close down everything. They had just cleaned it. So they take off, because that opening on that door to clean it was huge. Well, they didn't tighten down the bolts. It must have been lunchtime. So we tightened everything down. We realized what happened. But then we looked to the right of the fireplace, and there's a return there. Well, that was a good place to stack the wood over there.
Yeah.
In the kitchen was another one, but that was a good place to put the wastebasket. You can't do those types of things. Once we remove the obstacles and what people put around, there was absolutely nothing wrong with the furnace, nothing at all. So air can be very frustrating. That's part of the problem. Dave Thomas, our engineer here, and our general manager, he, whole house fan, I see that. They're absolutely right. How about the dryer? You turn that on. That's another thing that pulls all of that. He gets very frustrated sometimes with warm air, because where is the air? Can you see it? It's hard. It's hard to see all of that. Water, if you've got a problem with water, you're going to see where it is.
Yeah.
So from the hydronic side. So yes, air is hard. It's hard to teach. Ken, close the basement door. Yeah.
I've got a question, actually, a comment from Ken Field. Close the basement door behind you when a call like that. Simulate every day, not service day. Absolutely true. You want a worst case scenario? No one does it, but NFPA 31 actually requires that.
Yeah, there's a whole test
Oh,
for it.
really?
Yeah,
On every new installation, that no one does it.
Yeah, isn't there like
Absolutely.
7 steps or something, Bob?
Everything except, everything, all the windows, all doors shut, everything except the whole house fan turned on. The dryer, the newer dryers, the high efficiency dryers move a lot of air and can pull the house negative amazingly quick. Another huge thing, which makes the leaky returns another problem. Now, when you cut off the return, from upstairs, there's a problem. You're going to pull it in from everywhere, and it starts pulling from the basement.
I had Bruce Graham to my house.
A lot of comments, and that with the questions, because you're like Raymond. Everybody loves Rosemarie, and Bob both says Rosemarie has always been at the top of everyone's list, and I think everyone can agree with that. Another one from Brenda Sinclair. Rosemarie is amazing, and each time she's come to our office, our techs have been impressed with her amazing knowledge. You're very popular.
Well, thank you. I don't know what to say. Thank you. I was going to say Bruce Graham came to my... What's that? I'm sorry, Bob.
We had another comment from Steve Martino. I just want to leave him out about whole house fans can do that too. Obviously, they're probably the biggest culprit.
One of the other things is my boiler is in my basement, and I had Bruce Graham come to my house, and I had the dryer running upstairs, second floor. My laundry room's on the second floor. It is amazing from all the way up in a 2-story that affected the burner running down. We opened up the doors, the basement door, and then I have a big open foyer, and then my laundry room's upstairs. It is just amazing unless you do this and you see this, the reality of what you guys try to teach to classes, to guys in the classes. It's like you just need to do it to realize how true it is, to make the impact.
It's a system. The furnace doesn't operate in a vacuum, and it's even the heating cooling system's not in a vacuum. The entire house, like you're talking about, all these other things that can have an effect on it. It's the entire house operates as a system. You really have to be conscious of all of that. Return air, combustion air, temperature rise, static pressure. The whole thing there's a lot to it. It's not that simple, and people just kind of get tunnel vision. They focus on what's in front of them rather than looking at the bigger picture. Sometimes I think.
Yeah.
I think one of the other misunderstandings on temperature rise is I think ours is maybe 60 or 65 degrees, and everybody puts it on the front of their furnaces. But I'll get a call and they'll say, but ours is 85. That's only 20 degrees. No, that's 20 degrees air temperature that they can see. What they don't realize is every furnace manufacturer, before we go to UL for approvals or ETL for approvals, thermocouples every square inch of the heat exchanger. Really, there's a grid. I'm sure everybody does the same thing. Yep. And I am telling you, depending on the material, if you're doing cold rolled steel, it's 910 degrees. That's all you can do. Our stainless steel combustion chamber is 430 stainless, so we can get up to like 1350 degrees on it. But there's varying degrees. And when you do that, and it may be 20 degrees that you can measure the air, but you're maybe 200 degrees difference on the skin of your heat exchangers or your chambers. It is a big difference. We held, when they used to have the Bartchak service managers, we had a dinner here in the plant. Took them around. We had it at night. It was a great meeting, and we showed them, and they didn't realize that. And I don't think most people realize the difference. 15 to 20 degrees is quite a few hundred degrees on the piece of heating equipment.
There's a reason it's a range, and it's that, and not, but it is amazing where they don't realize the importance of it. Hot topic, biofuels.
We are maybe slower to the rate. We're never first at anything. But we have now sent all of our equipment out to the manufacturers, the burner manufacturers, to now get all of this, run our equipment, test them. Beckett, Carlin. I don't believe we've sent anything to Riello at this point, but Beckett and Carlin for sure have all of our pieces of equipment, whether it's the Trio boilers or whether it's the Regal furnaces, and doing more and more with that, because we realize that may be our only saving grace in the years to come. There's, every time we turn around, we can look at this podcast 6 months from now, and because of the geopolitical situation, this will seem like, like it's old news already, but we don't know what's coming forward. And, but we are aware that it's going to happen. We've got to move forward to it, and we've got to embrace what's going to happen. But at this point, we are just beginning to have some cycle testing done at the burner manufacturers for all of our equipment.
Thanks for the update.
Good.
Thanks for the update. And you mentioned boilers, so you're not just there. You're in the water side too.
Oh yes, of course. I'm the boiler babe. That's my other name, the boiler babe. Okay. That's what they. Yes. It's been a great boiler, a little low mass concept. We're not new to the game with that, obviously. I actually met Mr. John Marin because Columbia Boiler, most people don't know this, Columbia Boiler Pottstown actually made the very first System 2000 boilers back in 1980. Yeah. And I remember Mr. Marin walking through the door because he was all of about 6'6". He was a very, very, very tall and very nice. So yes, the low mass boiler, honestly, that's what I have in my house. Love it. I had one of our steel boilers because we do still sell steel boilers. And here in Pennsylvania, there's still a lot of steel boilers sold. So we still do sell steel boilers, the Emerald boiler here. We're part of other companies. Thermodynamics is one of our sister companies. Most people don't know EFM is one of our sister companies. We have Reimer's Electrosteam as our sister company. Pottstown Engineered Products is one of our commercial series. Their commercial series boiler, that's one of our sisters. We're alone. We stand very small. Together, we're larger than people would think.
I did not know any of that. So I definitely learned something now.
Yeah. So the boilers, I have one in my house, and I tell this story. I took out a boiler that was with coil boiler, held 25 gallons of water, and put in my little Trio 4 section, holds 4 gallons of water. I save 300 gallons every single year since I've put it in consistently. Yep. So it really, yes, the indirect is not inexpensive, and today maybe a little more than it used to be, but by all means, if we're going to save energy and lessen a carbon footprint, there's more than one way to lessen the carbon footprint out there. So
yeah,
it's been a great boiler, and we've had great partners, and I don't know, just it's been a fun ride. It really has been, seeing all of this and being part of people like FW Webb and so on. Quite a company. They really are. All of my customers are. I treat them all like they're number one. That's the way it should be. So I can remember the first shipment we sent to Greenville, South Carolina, to a company called JL Wynn. I remember selling 20 furnaces and thought I was just so excited about that. So that goes back a lot of years.
how are furnace sales doing overall? I mean, I follow the HR reports, and there's been an uptrend the last. I mean, there was a COVID, I don't know what you call it, crater. It wasn't good there for a while, but it's been a pretty steady uptick. Are you guys seeing the same thing?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and the dynamics have changed, just like we were talking about the boiler dynamics changing. And if we all live long enough, and I'll be the last woman standing, maybe, I don't know. It's a matter of, yes, there's only 2 American manufacturers left now, us and Thermopride. Bob, you and I were talking about this the other day, and there are 2 in Canada, that Wallet and Conforto, so Granby. So the dynamics there have changed as well. We also manufacture the ream furnace. That was another huge help to manufacturing here. It is not easy to manufacture in the United States, and having a name brand such as Ream and Rude as one of our partners here as well with the oil furnaces has been a huge help to us. And so, the uptick, we had a great year. We've had a great year actually since COVID hit. I really was afraid we would shut down.
Yeah.
And it's been anything but that. So
that's great news. I mean, a lot of people are, declaring the death of oil, but obviously that's not true. You watch those numbers for the whole industry, and there's an uptrend for the last few years. Since 2023, it's been a pretty much a couple of little potholes here and there, but basically a continued uptrend for oil furnace sales for 3 years now. So it's looking pretty good. And the Ream marriage, or whatever you want to call it, but I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, that's definitely a benefit to the bigger furnace, which is much superior to the one they'd had previously.
Yeah.
And I think they realize that too. And that's how I always realize there really are 2 segments to our HVAC market. There's really the HVAC technicians, and then there's my oil guys. And we always could play up to the oil guys. That was always where our heart was. But the HVAC was just the market because that wasn't their main forte, was the oil furnace. It came along with it, and they installed it, but they had no passion for it. They just needed to put that coil on, that heat pump. And now, and you're right, and that board again that we operate with, I mean, that gives them the opportunity for 2-stage air conditioning, 2-stage heat pump. And actually, Carlin was a burner when we had the 2-stage H2L. That was a fabulous combination. It really was fabulous.
I remember that.
It really was
better.
It was incredible. So, but yes, I will say that most of the Ream-Rude wholesalers that we now have truly appreciate us. And because we're right here, right where they are in the Northeast, we have a better presence with them. We know them more. And I love getting out to see all of those customers. It's all about that personal touch. That's what really Boyertown Furnace is really all about. So.
No, it's important for the oil industry to reach out to the HVAC guys. A third or so of the service and installations are done by HVAC contractors, people who don't sell fuel of any type and don't really care what fuels used. So it's important to develop those relationships for the liquid fuel industry to embrace those people and help them understand liquid heating equipment better. So I think it's huge that you guys are doing that. Incredibly important.
Well, I think here, because we have 2 very strong burner manufacturer personalities here in our Pennsylvania market, not that we don't have them up north too, because we certainly do, but I'll speak for like Kurt Martin from Beckett and Tommy Leonetti, and of course my friend, my buddy Bruce Graham, who's now retired. But we had those guys come with me when I get the opportunity to do a training at an HVAC place, like you said, that really wouldn't care about it. But boy, they need to know about what's going on in the burner world. And so it is nice to have those people to take in and make a complete presentation on behalf of the oil industry, because that's who we are.
Do you see a lot of that, Alan? A lot of HVAC guys coming through PPA Tech?
And I want to give some credit to Ted for that. Several years ago, when he came along, he quickly identified, realizing that there were a lot of folks that thought you had to own a petroleum company to be able to be a part of it or attend any training. And that's really where PPA Tech comes from. He actually created that division and opened it up. Everybody here probably knows, anybody in the fuel business, with PPA, to be a member, it's going to be based on how many gallons you sell, and that's going to just determine what your membership fees and all that good stuff. When Ted created PPA Tech, he opened up an avenue for where I think it started at 5, it might be 550 now, but it didn't matter if you had, 4 people in your company or 100 people in your company. If you're just an HVAC contractor, my gosh, you're welcome, become a member, and by all means come here and get the training. And we absolutely have seen that growth. I'm pretty sure there's close to a few hundred. I don't want to say that Ted's better with numbers, but it's I think like in the first year it had already accumulated like 50 to 70 companies, and now we're talking 5-6 years later. So it's probably in the couple hundred range.
What percentage of HVAC contracts do you get in, like when you do a NORA 2-week class or you do your 3-day oil class? Is it mostly HVAC guys, mostly fuel dealers, or you have a good mix?
Yeah, it's kind of a hit or miss. I want to say probably for the most part, and remember I haven't been doing them for a couple of years now since I'm semi-retired, but I would say it was probably 80%, fuel dealers and 20% HVAC contractors. But there'd be an occasional, all of a sudden one month I'd realize more than half better than half the class were literally just HVAC companies. And usually when that happened, it's because they were, we're very proud that we've gotten people to travel all the way from New Hampshire or from Virginia, so that it's not just, in Pennsylvania. And that's typically when we're seeing the HVAC companies we're seeing are not just from PA. We're seeing them from a lot of other states surrounding the Mid-Atlantic region.
Yeah, we've noticed the same thing on Long Island. It's probably a third, 40% of the students are not from fuel dealers, which is great. I mean, those are the people who need to get this information. They have no vested interest in keeping liquid-fired equipment in the field or buying new stuff. So it's huge that we keep that going there. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rosemarie, for getting that out there also. What do you say? What's the most common when you get a phone call? I mean, there are always complaints, right? No one ever calls to say what a great job you do. What's the most common issue? Is it a burner problem? Furnace, airflow, combustion?
It's furnaces going off on limit. Still to this day, furnaces going off on limit. And I do think it's because everything is pretty much dialed in on everybody's furnace. Like going back to what I sort of said, there's no more belt drives. You don't have that. Yeah. No more fan and limit, turn this, turn that. It's dialed in. The boards operate. You are restricted to the airflows. And, the other thing is we have 3 firing rates on some of the units. Well, if they want to change the firing rate, they also have to change dip switches for the airflow. A lot of times they won't do that. And so that gets to be the problem. But it is that and combustion issues. There's combustion issues, and it's hard explaining. We just simply tell them to open the basement window. If that goes away, you've got an issue with combustion air. On the furnaces going off on limit and so on, and airflow, that's a little harder because it could be as much as, did anybody check to see if the filter got sucked into the blower? I mean, the cat lays right there. Did anybody change that filter full of cat hair and all the dirt and so on? It's just the ductwork. I mean, they got to go upstairs. They got to walk around, make sure everything is open. Those two things. I'd say they're 50-50. Combustion, smells, and right away they want to say it's a heat exchanger. When the blower comes on, they've apparently been taught, and they get it changed in the draft reading. Well, that does not mean you necessarily have a breach in your heat exchanger. Did you just clean that furnace? Well, yeah, I just cleaned it. Well, there's 2 clean out ports, or there's, on the Regal Star, there's huge clean out ports. Did you make sure you tightened them all down? Because there's your breach, not necessarily a crack, but there's your breach. And it's things like that you have to teach them. But Yes, those are every day. I would say this, interestingly enough, about the HVAC, and you were talking about some of the people south of the Mason-Dixon line. I have less problems with airflow because air conditioning and ductwork that was designed for air conditioning, far more
Bigger.
prevalent.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Far more
I didn't
prevalent.
think of that.
Far more prevalent south of the Mason-Dixon line, and we get less problems with things going off on limit, a cracked heat exchanger, far less problems. I go north where there's the older homes and nobody thought of air conditioning. It's a whole different world. So it's understanding what these techs have to deal with too and trying to help them out.
I never thought of that. That's a great point. We have a comment from Tim Harold. The best way to avoid the furnace golfing on high limit is sizing the furnace to the existing ductwork if that is the limiting factor.
Imagine that.
Can't argue with that. Unless you're going to replace all the ductwork, it is the limiting factor, and it's the absolute, kind of like sizing a steam boiler. You size it to the existing radiation.
That's right.
Same exact thing. Yeah, but I mean, it's amazing how often you see furnaces, going off on limit, and people think it's normal.
It causes thermal fatigue. It causes thermal fatigue, and they're going to destroy the furnace.
Yeah. When you're talking about cracked heat exchangers too, there seems to be a rush among a lot of guys to condemn the heat exchanger, whether they want to sell a new furnace or whether there's pressure from above to sell the furnace, or it's just the easy way out or whatever. But I mean, you're right. They don't check clean outs or anything else. They're really easy to pull the trigger and say it's a cracked heat exchanger and walk away. And you have to be diligent.
Yes. And I am. I would say I don't write credits easily.
Sure that it actually is the cracked heat exchanger, which there are plenty out there, but it doesn't happen in full.
Well, when I have my Regal heat exchanger is a 10 gauge primary heat exchanger with a fiber chamber, and it's lined with stainless steel. And when somebody calls me to say, I think we have a cracked heat exchanger, I say, show me.
Yep.
Because honestly, we've been making that furnace for years. And if we get what we get back, they're not cracked at all. We ask for everything back in case we have had a problem. There's quality control issues. Hallmark had a problem years ago. We welded on a 90-degree bend. You don't do that. You had that accordion design. It wanted to go this and this, and you have that 90-degree bend where you're putting all of that heat right on the back corners. Well, it wasn't too long till we had a lot of cracked heat exchangers. We owned up to every one of those things because we got them back and we quickly saw what the issue was. You have to do that. You have to admit you have a problem. You have to be willing to look at those things, and then you have to learn from it all. And what we learned is the other thing was when we were welding the heat on the weld, we were causing stress fractures before they ever left the building. So you have to be very careful. We hand weld everything here. Everything is MIG welded. And the other thing, what we do here is we take like an ultrasound device and we put it inside the heat exchanger, close off every opening, and we have what I call a radar gun. And we run every inch of the weld on every heat exchanger that we have, inclusive the Cox furnaces, which are quite large.
Yeah.
So that's how we check our heat exchangers in the weld, and to make sure we're not causing any problems here as well. So yeah, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to learn. There's a lot I've learned over 47 years. So.
And the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know.
Oh yes, always. In life, that's true though. In life, that's true.
Yeah. And certainly in this business. Just to jump back to the boilers really quick. Years ago, I remember you had like a really cool control that mounted on top where you put some other manufacturer stuff together. Do you still do something like that? We
still do something like that. And it certainly helps out when you're wiring up several zones in the house. Now we've changed it and we've modified it a bit. And we're using the Caleffi control board in there, and not hydrostat, a particular hydrostat control, which I want to tell you about the hydrostat control that we have on our Trio Max boiler. But anyway, yes, we still have that sort of device on top, and it's very helpful, especially for 1 or 2 man operations. The wiring is done for them. They just need to bring in their power, and they need to bring in their thermostat connections, and they can make the job quick. It's a quick job to get in and out, especially if you only have
That was, I don't want to interrupt you, but while I'm thinking about it, that was one of the items you had when you came to PPA Tech. And I'm just curious, since you're saying you've made some slight changes, does it, even with the changes, does it still have the ability, if I'm remembering right, I think you were showing us how you could either use it 24 volts or you could use it 120 volts, depending whether you had zone valves or circulators. Does it still have that flexibility?
No, it does not. It does not anymore. There are two separate boards, and that is because Honeywell had that AQ, and they discontinued it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why that does not happen.
See, I'm old too. See.
But the guys get most excited about the fact that there is a off-on switch, but yet the ground fault plug there, they can keep everything plugged into that, and they still have electric coming into that. That's one of the most one of the better benefit and features on that. And then
that's a winner.
On our hydro level control that we have on our Trio Max, our boiler with the coil, it's got a neat advantage to it, so that if you're in the shower and you've got your high limit up to 180 and low limit at 150 or 160, that if you jump into the shower and you run the water down, and it starts to see at about 170 degrees, it sees a rapid drop of 3 degrees in like 18 seconds or 12 seconds, something like that. I forget which one it is. It will immediately turn your burner on. So what you're doing is you're saving the energy that is still in your boiler, as opposed to letting it all go all the way down, hit the floor, and then try to come back up again. So, I mean, it's really a neat thing. The other thing is we've come up with a little device where you can actually shut the option off for your coil on the boiler. If there's a call for heat, it does not disrupt, does not disrupt the call for heat, but it will stop. So from 8 to 5, is anybody home from 8 to 5? The kids are in school, everybody's working. Is there really a reason to run your domestic water coil? No. How about at night, 10 to 6? If you're in my house, 8:30 at night, I'm in bed already. But, you know, you don't need to run that domestic hot water coil. So you have the option to fine tune this on your phone. It's an app that you can get, and you can turn that option off. Can you, I mean, the savings that you get because of not running that water. Who's using hot water at 3 o'clock in the morning? Really? That used to drive me crazy when my boiler would run in July at 2:30 in the morning. What for? And there's your savings. There we can lower the carbon footprint with something that simple. Well, it's all a tribute here to like Dave Thomas. He thinks of these little things that this is not expensive. This is really not expensive, and it's a little thing, but it makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yep. Amen.
I'll throw it out there. Do it geofenced. When the phone leaves the house, it turns off. When the phone comes back, it turns on, other than overnight or whenever. But during the day, that solves the whole problem. If, you know, somebody's home, they go out, why respond to that domestic water call if they're out of the house? We're reaching the end here. If anybody has any questions that they want to get in, we got a couple minutes left. Be happy to
while
take
we're
them.
waiting, I just want to tell you that one day this last year, I got a call from Antarctica. And it was the government, and they said they want to buy furnaces. I said, well, we don't make gas, and what are you looking for? And no, oil. They
Jet
run
fuel.
on nothing but oil down
They
there.
called me also.
Yep.
I've spoken.
So-
the United States Antarctic Project.
Yes, that's it. So we sent down 10 huge Cox furnaces. That was one of my proudest moments here at Boyertown Furnace, to know that the furnaces were going from here to California to New Zealand and then down to the Antarctic. I just, that was wonderful.
I spoke to them extensively. I believe they have 150, 160 separate units, mostly boilers, but a lot of furnaces, the bigger commercial stuff.
Yeah.
We'd work with them on the rosters and set up some training on it, but they hire HVC contractors on 6-month contracts. Interestingly, they have enough fuel for 2 years on site, a couple of million gallons, just in case the summer supply ship can't make it for a year. They're good for 2 years. So they got a lot of fuel storage there.
Yeah.
So any questions? We got a comment from Scott Nicholas. Hi, Rosemarie, Bob, and Alan. See you Fuchs at AAA. Actually, we can give AAA a plug. You'll have a booth there, Rosemarie?
Oh, absolutely. We'll be there.
Showing all your stuff and supporting. You're always there. Alan's going to be there, obviously. Nora's got a bunch of classes as well as some technical classes, oil tanks, outside oil tanks on Monday, troubleshooting, burner troubleshooting on Tuesday, and bioheat on Wednesday. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Everybody have a good evening.